And today, the Supreme Court has answered that question by a vote of 6-3.
The U.S. Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling.
Major Supreme Court ruling.
This is a case that's been bounced around back and forth throughout the court system.
Suppressor taxes just got crushed. Something huge just happened in Congress, and it directly affects millions of gun owners. After nearly 90 years, the federal government is backing down. The $200 tax stamp for suppressors and short-barreled rifles is officially gone. That's right, Congress just approved a national measure that sets these taxes to zero. But here's where things get even more serious. While the tax is gone, the registry system still stands, and that opens the door to major constitutional challenges. In fact, gun rights groups are already planning to go after the registry itself, and it could change everything about how suppressors and SBRs are treated under federal law. Let's break this down clearly, what just passed, what it means for you, and how this sets the stage for the biggest Second Amendment legal fight in decades. Chapter 1. What Congress just did. Congress quietly passed a provision in a massive budget bill that eliminates the tax on suppressors, SBRs, and other NFA-regulated items. This move doesn't just save gun owners money, it shatters the financial foundation of the NFA. Key points. The $200 tax stamp is being reduced to zero, effective January 1st, 2026. This applies to suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and AOWs. Congress passed it through a broader omnibus bill to avoid individual opposition. It affects all 50 states regardless of local laws. This is a federal change. This is a huge win for gun owners. For years, that $200 fee acted as a barrier to entry, keeping suppressors and SBRs out of reach for many law-abiding citizens. Now, that wall is coming down. Chapter 2. The tax is gone, but the registry remains. Here's the catch. While the tax is being removed, the registration process through the ATF still exists. That means you'll still need to submit fingerprints, paperwork, and wait for approval. The only thing that's changed is the price tag. Key points. Form 1 and Form 4 registration processes are still required. The ATF continues to manage the National Firearms Registration and Transfer Record. Even though the tax is gone, you still need federal permission before acquiring these items. Critics argue that without a tax, the legal justification for the registry becomes much weaker. This situation has opened a new door for lawsuits. Why should Americans have to go through a federal registry to exercise a constitutional right, especially if there's no longer a tax to justify it? That's where the next battle begins. Chapter 3. Why legal challenges are now inevitable. The tax stamp used to be the excuse. It was called a tax power issue, not a gun control issue. But now that the fee is gone, courts may be forced to review whether the registry itself is even legal. And with the Bruen decision setting a new standard for gun laws, the timing couldn't be more explosive. Key points. Legal experts say the removal of the tax undermines the registry's constitutional basis. Gun rights groups are preparing lawsuits in multiple federal districts. Some attorneys will argue that the registry violates privacy, due process, and the Second Amendment. This could be the start of dismantling the entire National Firearms Act. The shift from taxation to pure regulation makes the NFA far more vulnerable in court. And with Pro 2, legal wins piling up, the registry may not survive the coming lawsuits. Chapter 4. The firearms industry is moving fast. The market isn't waiting for the courts. Suppressor and SBR manufacturers are already gearing up for a new boom. With the tax gone, they expect a flood of new buyers, especially if the registry falls next. Key points. Suppressor makers like Silencer Co. and Dead Air are ramping up production. Dealers are preparing for a possible surge in NFA item sales after January 2026. Some industry groups are already launching awareness campaigns to inform buyers. If the registry is eliminated, same-day purchases could become a reality. This change could reshape the entire firearms marketplace. What used to be a month-long process filled with red tape could soon become as easy as buying a rifle off the shelf, and that has manufacturers, retailers, and buyers all watching closely. Chapter 5. The state-level resistance has begun. Even though this is a federal change, some anti-gun states are already preparing to push back. California, New York, and New Jersey could attempt to enforce their own suppressor restrictions or try to create state-level tax stamps. Key points. State laws are not automatically overridden by this federal change. Some states may pass new local taxes or bans to slow down NFA item ownership. Pro-gun states like Texas and Arizona may use this momentum to pass their own deregulation bills. Legal fights between states and federal courts are expected by mid-2026. So, while this is a major federal win, gun owners will still need to watch their local laws closely. The national trend may be moving toward freedom, but individual states will likely try to stand in the way, and those battles are just beginning. Chapter 6. Lawsuits incoming. The moment Congress removed the suppressor tax, it set off a wave of preparation among gun rights lawyers across the country. Legal experts see this as the perfect opening to challenge the very foundation of the NFA registry itself. Without the tax to justify registration, the entire system starts to look like an overreach of federal power. Key points. Multiple lawsuits are already being drafted by groups such as the Firearms Policy Coalition and Gun Owners of America. Attorneys argue that without a tax, there is no lawful reason for the government to require citizens to be placed in a registry. The removal of the tax exposes how the NFA has functioned more as a control mechanism than a true revenue measure. These cases will likely begin in federal courts across Texas, Florida, and the Fifth Circuit, where recent Pro 2A rulings have been strongest. For decades, courts have relied on the taxation authority excuse to uphold federal gun restrictions. Now that this foundation is gone, the registry's legality could collapse like a house of cards. The lawsuits that follow may not only decide the future of suppressor ownership, but also redefine how far the government can go in regulating a constitutional right. Chapter 7. The Bruen Standard. The Supreme Court's 2022 decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen changed everything about how lower courts must review gun laws. Under the Bruen Standard, a firearm regulation is only valid if it aligns with America's historical tradition of gun regulation, and there is no such history of taxing or registering suppressors or SBRs. Key points. Bruen requires judges to compare modern gun laws to those from the late 1700s and early 1800s. The NFA's restrictions were created in 1934, more than 140 years after the Second Amendment was ratified. Legal scholars agree that there is no founding-era precedent for registration or taxation of common firearm accessories. This historical gap could make it nearly impossible for the ATF or DOJ to defend the registry in upcoming court challenges. By removing the tax and exposing the lack of historical roots, the Bruen Standard may become the registry's undoing. If judges apply Bruen correctly, they must strike down any rule that cannot trace its origins to America's founding period. And when that happens, the suppressor registry could be the next major federal gun control policy to fall. Chapter 8. Registry block moves forward. The tax removal by Congress was only the beginning. A new push is now underway to directly challenge the legality of the NFA's registration system, not just for suppressors, but potentially for all NFA items. This includes short-barreled rifles, SBRs, machine guns, and more. Key points. Lawmakers from pro-Second Amendment states have introduced resolutions to defund the ATF registry system entirely. Some members of Congress are advocating for full repeal of registration mandates that lack a taxation basis. Legal briefs argue that a registry without taxation violates both the Commerce Clause and the Second Amendment. States like Texas and Florida are preparing to declare the registry null within their borders if federal courts agree. This could be the start of the largest legal and legislative rollback of NFA-era policies in American history. Once a tax is removed, courts will be forced to reconsider whether registration alone is constitutional, and Congress seems increasingly willing to help pull that thread. Chapter 9. Pressure on the ATF Builds. With the tax repealed and the registry under threat, the ATF now finds itself in the crosshairs of a political and legal storm. Critics argue the agency has acted far beyond its intended role, enforcing rules that were never passed by Congress and restricting rights through bureaucratic reinterpretation. Key points. The ATF's recent SBR rule is now under multiple court challenges for exceeding congressional authority. Internal documents leaked in 2023 show ATF officials debated the legality of their own pistol brace policies. Gun rights groups are demanding congressional investigations into regulatory overreach and backdoor rulemaking. Several senators have proposed bills to defund or reorganize the ATF, citing repeated constitutional violations. What happens next could reshape how firearm regulations are created and enforced in America. If courts and lawmakers continue to push back, the ATF may soon lose its grip over how suppressors, SBRs, and other items are tracked, taxed, or even registered at all. Chapter 10. The fight isn't over yet. Even with Congress passing this major restriction rollback, the fight over suppressor and SBR regulations is far from settled. Pro-gun and anti-gun forces are now regrouping for the next legal battles, especially as the ATF prepares responses and legal challenges mount. Key takeaways. The Registry block has sparked immediate lawsuits aimed at defending the rollback in court. Pro-regulation groups are calling on the president to veto or override portions through executive channels. The ATF may attempt emergency rulemaking to regain lost regulatory control over suppressors and SBRs. States may now pass their own local bans or registry laws to counterbalance federal changes. This isn't a final victory or defeat. It's the opening round of a new nationwide battle over firearms regulation. What happens next will depend on how courts, Congress, and the executive branch respond, and how informed and prepared gun owners remain. Suppressors, SBRs, and the next constitutional clash. This new congressional decision could rewrite decades of restrictive firearm policy or be reversed in the courtroom before it takes effect. As gun owners, we cannot afford to wait and see. We must understand the laws as they evolve, challenge unlawful restrictions when necessary, and stay engaged in the defense of constitutional rights. If you're watching this, you're already part of the fight. Like this video to spread awareness. Comment below with your thoughts and share how your state is responding, so you never miss a critical update on the Second Amendment front lines. Together, we stay informed. Together, we stand ready.